My name's Jorge. I grew up in the 80s and I used to love getting into trouble. I have always been a friend of felines. I take my faith very seriously, attending college at a Christian school, and I've been a music fan my entire life, only recently finding out that I really like extreme metal, and I want to invite you to journey with me on my discovery of extreme metal. What is up, folks? Welcome back to A Christian Collects Death Metal. It's your pal Jorge here, back at it again. Thanks so much for stopping by. Once again, welcome back. My friends, today we will be discussing Nuclear War Now Productions, the label / distro, and its owner, Yosuke K. I always used to pronounce his name Yosuke. I believe it's Yosuke, according to Google. I think both pronunciations are correct. I think it's Yosuke. Apologies if I'm wrong. If you have placed an order with Nuclear War Now, I think I'm just going to say NWN going forward, you will have most likely received this little guy right here, which doubles as a cool poster you could slap on the wall, but it's also like an insert that just sort of gives a brief rundown on Yosuke and the creation of NWN. And it's really super cool, honestly. He came up in the DC scene, cutting his teeth on punk and hardcore, and he began to, he became interested in the underground metal scene, especially like late 80s, early 90s, raw, black metal, obscure sort of metal, and he began to communicate with various label owners. He was involved in the tape trading scene, and what these things did was cultivate in him this sort of passion or fixation to create this sort of thing himself. And thusly, in 2001, what we have is the creation of Nuclear War Now Productions. And can we go ahead and just point out how awesome this design is? Probably the best out there, rivals that of the greats like Iron Bonehead or even Hell's Headbanger, even the new Out of Season logo. I mean, it's just some of the great logo designs, man. I think it's a good one. A man who wears many hats. Yosuke has his plate completely full, as far as I can tell. He comes from a long line of artistic family members. The heritage, the pedigree is there. But this guy is just super busy and involved in the underground world. Not only does he run the label, working with various artists, putting out their material, he runs the online store. He also has Eastern Front, brick and mortar, vinyl shop, as well as, most recently, Helios Press. One of the things that personally I'm most excited about, just to see. I mean, can you imagine what this guy's life like? I mean, he's living the dream. Can you imagine? I mean, just working around all this great music, pressing out these records, working with great artists. I mean, in my opinion, the guy's living the dream. I could only imagine. And I think one of the things that I also appreciate about Yosuke and NWN is just the overall ethos, the commitment to the underground. You know, for a long time their logo was, and it says this in the pamphlet, that only analog is real, right? Just vinyl and cassettes, which to this day that's all I listen to is just vinyl and tapes. Nothing against CDs, and since they've softened up down through the years, you could say, and they sell CDs, they print CDs, all that. And one thing I could say about CDs, it's no slight against anybody who collects those, it is still physical media, so there's that. But this guy is just he's devoted. He has a level of devotion to the underground world, to black metal, to death metal. I mean, it's just all variations of extreme metal. One of the things he does is secure the rights or licensing to some of these older titles. I assume that's the right terminology. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But yeah, some of these titles that were released, long ago, right? He is sort of resurrecting them and breathing new life into them for people like me, right? Who's fairly new, to discover this great music. I'll give you a couple examples. A while back, they pressed at Helios. I got this upside down. The Torture, this black thrash from, I want to say the early 90s. Actually, it probably says right here somewhere. Okay, Chilean 80s pioneers. It's like thrash, but sort of like black thrash. Great stuff. Torture. And then, not too long ago, actually a couple of weeks back, he released Worlds and Worlds by Oxyplegats. I'm sure I mispronounced that. Wow, this is some avant-garde sci-fi black metal if I ever heard, and I don't even know if that's really the right way to explain it. But, man, one of the coolest things you could do over at NWN, and if you're like me, you're not always able to, but when you can, and I always try to set a few bucks aside just for this reason, and that's blind buying. I am so overwhelmed with stuff that I've never encountered before. It doesn't matter when I visit NWN, they are constantly updating the web store. They're just with stuff that, new items, either stuff that they themselves are putting out, or distro items that he's getting in from other places. I just grabbed this Grave Upheaval Rehearsal. This is an Iron Bonehead release, but I picked this up just based on the cool artwork over at NWN, and man, am I glad I did that. I've heard Impetuous Ritual before, didn't realize until recently that it's shared members. Great death metal, Death Doom that sort of veers heavy on the death metal side, I think. Great stuff, and this is just a rehearsal. So happy for that. And yeah, Iron Bonehead, it's weird because these guys, you look them up on Metal Archives and they say they're with NWN. But Iron Bonehead. So I'm not sure about that, but that's another thing about Yosuke is, he works with a lot of these, overseas distros like Iron Bonehead and just getting stuff in from everywhere. And it's always so cool to follow their social media, their Instagram, because they're always listing stuff that they get in, that they're putting out. And so it's just a great way to keep up with what's happening over there. And man, it's just very exciting, super exciting. And sometimes he'll just float stuff out there in the ether sphere, and whatever happens. You'll be scrolling on there, and every single album reissued from Grand Belial's Key. What is this stuff that you really don't see it very often? At least I don't. It's crazy. So yeah, when I'm able to, I like to blind buy, and just the surprise, just something that I used to feel back in the day. That's special to me. So because the fine folks at NWN, they are vinyl enthusiasts, music lovers themselves, let's just acknowledge the attention to careful packaging that these guys do. Now, so if you order some multiple LPs, you'll get a box, something like this. Probably holds maybe 3 or 4. But anyway, just sort of a plain Jane box, right? Until you open it and discover how sick is that? I mean, and they got these things to sort of make sure everything's braced and in place. But, I mean, check that out. I mean, it's just some of the coolest packaging. Rivals that of even Go to War X. It's just great stuff. And, say what you will about the packing peanuts. I would rather get my vinyl safe and sound with these than get some broken records without these, right? So that's that. Now let's say that you just order a single LP, or I guess maybe 2. I think this is really more for a single, but I mean, check that out, man. Is that some of the coolest packaging you've ever seen, right? Of course, they've got everything in here, the extra padding. This right here is the type of quality assurance that you get with Nuclear War Now. Most of you already know what this is. It basically says which worker down at NWN specifically handled and pulled and packed your order, and the person who came behind him and checked it. For instance, this one says that Justin, thank you Justin, pulled my order, put it together, and the second person that came behind and double checked it was Yosuke himself. Thank you. How cool is that? I don't know any other distro label that does this. I mean, just for accountability reasons, also quality assurance. I mean, wow. Hats off. Yosuke is an OG when it comes to live shows, band promotion, putting on these festivals. He's done with Iron Bonehead as well as Hospital Productions, a famous noise label out of New York. I really enjoy Torture Chain out of Hospital Productions. Super, super important to him and to the scene as a whole. Going to these shows, checking out some of these bands live. That's very important, and he's one of the guys that's really big on this, pushes this all the time. And you know what? It's encouraging to see, because this day and age where everything's just, you sit around, lay on the couch, and you're on your phone, just getting out and getting to a show and supporting, these artists, your favorite bands and stuff. Super important, man. Now, some of you might say, Jorge, doesn't NWN have records that maybe we don't care for so much, some controversial ones? You know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. And the answer is, yeah, probably. I've already mentioned Graham Blyle's Key, Goat Moon. I think he even has this one up as well. That was a quick up and down. But, here's the thing. Yosuke has always been a proponent, an advocate of free speech. And, when you start saying this, but not that but not this, it's just a slippery slope. And you know what? I don't know if any of us, I personally don't want to go down it. Look, I don't agree with a lot of these bands and stuff, and I don't buy stuff that I don't care for. It's up to each person. If you don't like something, you don't have to listen to it, and you surely don't have to buy it. So we'll leave it at that. And he works with so many great artists. I mean, Abigail, Cemetery Lights, Ancestral Shadows, Sabat, Blasphemy. My personal favorite, I should have had these better prepared, but yeah, Departure Chandelier, one of the great black metal titans as far as, raw underground synthetic black metal is concerned. Even have this promo tape. It's a Departure Chandelier Sabat split, Tough as a Coffin Nail from Departure Chandelier, and Desecration by Sabat, the Sabat boys. They actually give this away for free, right? If your order is $50 or over, you can add this to your cart. They still have this promo going on right now. I'm pretty sure right now. I got this a little while back, but man, Departure Chandelier is one of those exciting, just absolutely exciting bands. When I first discovered them, it was the Satan Soldier of Fortune last year, and just absolutely blown away by that, as I'm sure most people are. Dude, not just the artwork, the the posters that you get with it, the the cool variants, just the whole package, man. And it's just exciting music right here. I actually have I don't know what you call this, I guess the French flag variant. Alright guys, there you have it. Let me know in the comments below exactly what you think. Let me know how do you feel about Nuclear War Now. some artists that you like from that label. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Jorge, a Christian who collects death metal, signing off. Be blessed.